Okay, so let's jump right into a demo. I'm going to log on as our building administrator in this case. Once I log in, you're going to see that we're presented with our risk dashboard. This is a new feature we've just introduced where we're summarizing all the assets, scoring them based on our risk matrix, and then summarizing them by location to give you a quick kind of heads up view of where the risk in your environment is being seen. So you can see in this specific example, we've got 3 different locations spanning, in this case, 19 assets. And we've got some risk scores from, a low score over here in headquarters to a very high score, something going on obviously over in the secure storage area. You can see this sunburst on the left actually highlights risk across the outermost ring here. So you can see that this asset's got some risk due to configuration exceptions or anomalies. It's got some unreviewed security events, some baselines. We're in good shape with our baselines there. We've actually got a high ranking CVE on this asset. So as we kind of roll across, we'll see that there's no ICS bulletins for this asset. It's healthy, it's reachable, it's got no security events to be worried about. And we'll basically do this for all the assets. So in this specific location, we've got 4 assets with varying risk. If we jump over to our science building, looks like everything's okay except for this one asset. Looks like it's a Jace controller, and it's got some configuration baseline anomalies, and we'll actually dive into some of that in a minute here. You can see over in headquarters, everything is a-okay. So let's dive into one of the assets showing risk, specifically this one over in our secure storage area. And we'll basically drill you through into how we're calculating that risk and then what we call some analytics about the asset. So you can see it's in a group of other BMS assets, and we're immediately starting to look at some of the collected data. So you can see that this asset, when we look at its peers, it's doing well, but it seems to have a lot more open ports and services, less firewall rules, and more users configured. So that's potentially areas for risk. You can see as far as software trends go, it's about trending with the group. It seems like it's probably getting its patches. Maybe it was offline for a few days, didn't report any data there. No software baseline deviations, which is good. You can see that it's trending in events, where we've got a spike in events specifically that occurred a few days ago. So that's something we're going to want to dig into. And from a baseline perspective, this is where we're taking some machine learning and determining what's normal for an asset or a group of assets. And you can see that the group norm is much, much higher. We saw some evidence on that on the few panes back there as well. If we finish off, you can see that we're actually showing you how your risk is being calculated. In the back end, we actually give you the ability to change and modify these settings, meet your own specific company's needs or risk lens. So we also saw some interesting risk behavior over in the science building, specifically on that Jace controller. So I'm actually going to, if we head over to our asset administration function, we'll be able to actually go look at all the assets that are in that sciences building. And when I drill through on that Jace controller, I can see that it looks like a few days ago, someone had actually upgraded the firmware on that. So moving it up to Tritium version 4.9. I know that's a version that actually closed some vulnerabilities. So that's good. I knew the vendor was there actually doing that maintenance, and they had told me that they're going to do that, but now I have ASM telling me definitively, based on understanding of the BACnet protocol, what is updated, which actually dovetails nicely into vulnerability monitoring. I actually have another Jace controller that they're due to upgrade in a different building. And with our vulnerability monitoring view, we can actually see that we have an older version of Tritium running here. And we'll actually bring you through to the vulnerability details. You can drill through and you can see it's a fairly low rated vulnerability, but it is concerning, specifically because it has an outstanding ICS security bulletin with it. So these are all part of the vulnerability monitoring feeds that we're monitoring for our customers. And if you actually look, at that vulnerability feed bulletin would actually tell you, click through the details, and ASM will actually go into actually showing you and providing you that bulletin right in context, which is great. Another core component of ASM related to both of these items is the ability to accurately report on these assets in your environment. So not only reporting just from a generic inventory standpoint, but also reporting to align with specific standard, whether it be the NIST standard, the CIS 20 standard. All of these things are built into ASM, so you can quickly and easily provide reporting to management, inventory teams, or even IT teams. They're asking you about inventory vulnerabilities, things along those lines. So you can see as we drill through the menu, let's say you're worried about the NIST cybersecurity framework. Specifically, you're being asked, what does your software inventory look like across your specific building environment? So you can actually drill on this report, gather up all the data for your assets that you've tagged as BMS. Maybe you want all the locations, maybe you just want the science building based on the query you may be being asked. And we'll just do them all so you can get a look at what the software titles look like across the board. And ASM will give you the ability to report on this today, or if you want to go back as far as data you've ever collected in the system. So let's say we wanted to go back, maybe just a few days. You then can click on the report. You can view it obviously in real time on the screen here as we're doing so. These reports are also schedulable, emailable. So you can see we've collected some data from Windows. We've collected some data on the Fortinet infrastructure that's powering the demo, some Linux titles, quite a few Linux titles in this environment. And if we head to the second page, we'll see some of those JACE controllers and the software versions that they've actually reported. So very nice report that can easily be summed up in many different formats in many different ways. Another quick feature to end on quickly as part of the demo is our Netflow analytics application. So this comes with our IDS sensor as well as our deep packet inspection sensor, one and the same. And this actually will go through all the network communications that we're seeing on the network, whether they be traditional IT or BMS protocols, and start to break up those protocols into the top services, the top source IPs, the top destinations. We'll actually let you drill through on each one to get an understanding of who is talking to who. If new endpoints are appearing in the system, you get visibility to that. Another great feature of Netflow is the ability to just kind of monitor inbound and outbound external connections. So if you're worried about vendor remote access, or if these systems are potentially accidentally connected to the public internet, that would potentially be seen here very, very quickly. So in a very closed off environment, you should see very little inbound external communications, assets reaching outbound, getting their updates, getting patches, but inbound communication should be few and far between. So you can see quickly turn on different IPs coming in from the outside world. Another nice part about the Netflow feature is we also give you a topology. So that was, all the communications just over the wire. But if you want a full drawn topology map, this is one based on the ASM specific communications. But if you flip over to network, we'll then be able to quickly show you, in a star type view, who's talking to who. These are all the endpoints that ASM is actively monitoring. And if we switch it over to discovered assets, this includes all the assets